Omagyanatrimandasya Gyanagana Salakaya Chakshasumilita Yena Tasma Shri Gurave Namah Sri Chaitanya Manabhishta Stapita Yena Bhutale Sayarupa Kadamayan Dutati Swapadantikam Vandehan Sri Guru Sutan Parakamalan Sri Guru Vaishnava Sri Rupa Sagrajatan Sahagana Raghunatha Tavitan Sajivan Sadvaitan Sabadutan Parijana Saita Krishna Chaitanya Devan Sri Radha Krishna Sahagana Lalita Sri Vishakavitam He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namastute Tata Kanchana Gorange Radha Vrindavan Vishabhanu Sutidevi Pranamami Haripriye Anchakapatarubhyascha Kripasindhivaya Vacha Pachetanam Pavanabhebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo 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 Mahapadaya Krishna Premapadayate Krishna Ya Krishna Chaitanya Namine Gaurati Sinama Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Ananda Lila Maya Vigraya Imabada Vichavisundaraya Tasma Maha Primrasa Pradaya Chaitanya Chandra Namana Master Chaitanya Chandra Namana Master Chaitanya Chandra Namana Master. So I'm glad to be online this evening in ISKCON Vrindavan Daily Bhagavad Gita Zoom lecture. So today we are speaking Bhagavad Gita, chapter 6, text 36. Lord Krishna enlightening Arjuna on the subject of the process of mind control. Since we are talking of the Bhagavad Gita, chapter 6, 36. Because Arjuna, you want to find out about the perfect way of this yoga, yoga performance in terms of how one can receive how one can attain success. So the law, I've been pretty much talking about the fact that yes, the mind must be brought under control. That unless the mind is controlled, then it's difficult for one to be focused on the real process of yoga, unless the mind is controlled. So perfection basically is not there. So now, again, he said the mind it's very difficult to control the mind, because to control the mind is it's easier to control the wind than control the mind. But just imagine, how can you control the wind unless you're the wind god? Just like sometimes you have hurricane, you have tornado, which are very strong wind. Just like, who can control that? No, only Vayu can do that. But Arjuna is saying that it's easier to control the wind than control the mind. Just imagine. making a comparison how the mind is such a big thing to control the mind. So Arjuna said he presents his, basically, he presents his assessment that it's difficult to control the mind. But the Lord said, yes, it's difficult to control the mind. However, it's easy to do, but it's possible if there is abhyas. Abhyas means practice. Abhyas, there's a constant the practice of controlling the mind, and then the vairagya, which is the detachment. So the constant practice and detachment, by such combination, those two combinations, the mind can be basically be tamed, which means the effort must be there. So we are reading from the chapter, the text number 36, which is continuation of the Lord's advice to Arjuna. So we just read the text, the Sanskrit text, and the translation. Asaṁyatātmanā yogo duṣprāpa iti me matiḥ. Vaśyātmanā tu yatatā śakyo vāptum upāyataḥ. Synonyms: asaṁyatātmanā, unbridled; atmanā, by the mind; yoga, self-realization; duṣprāpa, difficult to attain, difficult to obtain; iti, thus; me, my; matiḥ, opinion; vaśya, controlled; atmanā, by the mind; tu, but; yatatā, while endeavoring; śakyo, practical; vāptum, to achieve; upāyataḥ, by appropriate means. Translation of purport by His Divine Grace is Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. For one whose mind is unbridled, self-realization is difficult work. But he whose mind is controlled and who strives by appropriate means is assured of success. That is my opinion. Purport. The Supreme Personality of Godhead declares that one who does not accept the proper treatment to detach the mind from material engagement can hardly achieve success in self-realization. Trying to practice yoga while engaging the mind in material enjoyment is like trying to ignite a fire while pouring water on it. Yoga practice without mental control is a waste of time. Such a show of yoga may be materially lucrative, but it is useless as far as spiritual realization is concerned. Therefore, one must control the mind by engaging it constantly in the transcendental loving service of the Lord. Unless one is engaged in Krishna consciousness, he cannot steadily control the mind. A Krishna conscious person easily achieves the result of yoga practice without separate endeavor, but a yoga practitioner cannot achieve success without becoming Krishna conscious. So asaṁyatātmanā yogo duṣprāpa iti me matiḥ vaśyātmanā tu yatatā śakyo vāptum upāyataḥ. So the translation again. For one whose mind is unbridled, self-realization is difficult work. But he whose mind is controlled and who strives by appropriate means is assured of success. That is my opinion. So here, Lord Krishna is giving his opinion. And of course, his opinion, of course, is is the best opinion, is the Supreme Lord. Knowledge comes from him. And when the Lord says, this is my opinion, which means that should be done by everyone. So since yoga means to be in union with the Supreme, even though I've said in the previous lectures that many people, they've hijacked this very word, yoga. This word has been hijacked. Yoga means the process of, just sit somewhere, pressing your mind, pressing your nose, and try to engage in some activities just for the benefits of the, of the body. But, just like we have so many commercial means, many yoga franchise businesses are there. You have hot yoga, this yoga, that yoga, But this is of course, the reality has nothing to do with yoga because yoga means to be in union with God, which means to be Krishna conscious. Because for one who's have attained perfection in yoga, which means such a person has essentially become the Lord's pure devotees. Because a pure devotee is the person who is in constant, who's always in constant thinking of the Lord. The Lord says, Satatam, Kita Yantoman, yatatā, that person who is always thinking of me, glorify my name, Actually, as in the subsequent chapters, when we get to next chapter, chapter 7, which is actually the beginning, which is the part of the section of the Bhakti Yoga of the section of the Bhagavad Gita, because Bhagavad Gita is divided into 3 sections. You have one section which deals with Kama Yoga. Then you have another section which deals with Jnana Yoga. And then you have another section that deals with Bhakti Yoga. So basically chapter 1 to 6, it deals with Kama Yoga. And then chapter 7 to 12, this deals with Bhakti Yoga. And section 13 to 18 is dealing with Jnana Yoga. But again, when we say yoga means all in connection with Krishna, with God. When we say Kama Yoga, means that activities which are meant for the satisfaction of the Supreme Lord. All these activities which are directed towards Krishna, so that is Kama Yoga. In one of the scriptural statements say that that when all the activities are meant for the satisfaction of the Rishikesh. Rishikesh means Rishi means the senses, and Isha means the Lord. So the Lord of the senses is Krishna, is Rishikesh. And so all activities are meant to be are meant for his satisfaction. So when all those activities, which means we are performing all activities with the sole purpose of satisfying the Lord for his own enjoyment. So that is Kama Yoga. And this Kama Yoga is not ordinary yoga. It actually means Kama, which means desireless activity. One is doing without one's own desire. Is desireless means to actually meant for the satisfaction of the Lord. So that is Karma Yoga. And then, of course, Jnana Yoga means all one's mental capacity, thinking, all the mental capacity, all meant for the attainment of the Lord, to be in union with the Lord. And then Bhakti Yoga, of course, is direct devotional activities, which brings, by which one perform, again, everything without attachment, but one perform Bhakti Yoga, which with the direct realization of the Lord Himself. So this, we hear about this from between chapter 7 and chapter 12, between chapter 7 to chapter 12 of the Bhagavad Gita. So these 6 middle chapters, these are actually the confidential part of the yoga. So that in this chapter here, the Lord is saying that for one whose mind is not controlled, success in yoga is not possible. In this Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he had written we are reading today. So Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur said, one who does not endeavor to control his mind by vairagya and abhyas can never perfect the previously mentioned system of yoga. However, he who endeavors to control the mind by adopting the proper means can definitely attain perfection in yoga. When I say by the proper means, I imply that he who tries to concentrate his mind by performing Niskam Karma Yoga offered to Bhagavan, and who engages in the abhyas of meditation or me as a link of this yoga system, simultaneously accepting with vairagya sense objects for his maintenance, gradually attains perfection in yoga. So basically, the activities is there for a person, but the activities are done without any particular attachment. In the of not being able to control the mind has been compared to the process of having the senses, the horses, which are not controlled. Just imagine if you are on a chariot, you have a chariot and you have the chariot and then the horses are there. But if you just let the chariots, if you just let the horses go their own way without any particular control, so obviously there's going to be chaos. Chaos will be there because the horses will just go here and there, here and there. No, but there has to be the rein must be there. The rein must be there. And when the rein are properly full, so that the horses will be tamed and they'll be able to go on a particular direction. So the law said that whatever the mind, because the mind is normally the mind is stubborn by nature, and the mind always wandering, chanchala, like I just said, the mind is chanchala, it's always restless, the mind is restless. The mind is never stopped thinking of any particular thing. Just like imagine you are doing your japa, you're chanting. Let's say you are doing japa work, you're chanting, and there's so many things to think of. So the mind will be thinking of so many things. So many things. But if all those thoughts are not about Krishna, then it becomes very problematic for one to really be, to have any particular success in chanting. Because actually, if you read for one who's actually doing chanting japa of the holy name of Krishna, there's supposed to be feeling must be there. Because one is calling upon the Krishna's name, one is calling upon the name of the Lord. So when one's chanting, there must be birth, or there must be feeling. The feeling must be there. Because the Lord's name is very, the Lord, the Krishna is not different from his name. Krishna Abhinatva Namanamine. Krishna is not different from his name when one is calling him. So Krishna is not different from his name. But how do we realize that? That yes, so that when one's actually doing the rechanting, then the presence of the Lord must be felt that, oh, the Lord is here. And you are calling upon him. And for those who have actually, been in the presence of the Lord, of Lord Krishna, everything is different from their body. So much bhav is there, so many different symptoms are there, tears coming from the eyes, the ears standing on end. So many things is be there. Because one is chanting with focus. But if one is chanting, the mind is simply wondering about so many things. So how can we feel the presence of the Lord? It's not possible. You are walking around, see so many objects. It's not there. So which means the mind is thinking of many things except Krishna. So therefore the Lord has said that the mind must forcefully be brought back to stop thinking of those things which are not Krishna. So like Ishwara Prabhu, he said that the mind is very stubborn. The mind is very stubborn. As Ishwara said that a person, when one wakes up in the morning, the mind must be beaten 100 times with a shoe. The 100 times one should beat the mind 100 times with the shoe. And before one sleep at night, again, one should again beat the mind 100 times. The mind should be beaten. Because the mind is stubborn. The mind is always thinking of many things which has nothing to do with the objective, with their goal of life. The goal of life is to obtain Krishna. Krishna Pumatamaha. The Krishna Prima Pumatamaha. The goal of life for a Krishna conscious person, the goal of our life is to develop love of God, love of Krishna. But the mind is our real enemy. Also, the mind is constantly taking us away from our real object of life. And especially the mind, it was always thinking of self gratification. Oh, this is good, or that this is good. Go to the movie, so many things, but how to simply enjoy the senses. So, part of in the instruction of the Gita, so Lord Krishna is saying that the mind can be one's friend, can also be one's enemy. So the mind can be a friend, the mind can be an enemy. So which means if the mind is not thinking about Krishna, because the mind will never stop, activities of the mind will never stop. If we think that we can stop the activities of the mind, then that is simply illusion. It's just not possible. So the mind will always be engaged in focusing activities. So if we allow the mind to simply wonders about all kinds of sense gratification, then we will obviously be disturbed on our path. So the disturbance will be there on the path. If the mind is simply allowed to be wonders about varieties of sense gratification, but at the same time, if the mind is controlled, if the mind is controlled by bringing it back to the point of thinking of the Lord, active of Krishna consciousness. So in that sense, the mind become the friend. And then the thought of the Lord, meditation of the Lord become very easier. So the whole yoga process by which one can meditate on the Lord it's by the process of mind control. How the mind can be controlled. And the Lord said, without the mind being controlled, yoga is not possible. The yoga process is not possible. Unbridled mind, unbridled means wild, just the out of control. It's not possible. So the great Acharya, they've given so many advices. They've written so many compositions about how to address the mind. So many compositions they have written. Like Raghunath Goswami, one of the most devotee of Chaitanya Prabhu, he has composed the list of texts. The list of texts, which are called Stapa Valley. And then in this list of texts, he has given some advice. And this advice is given in the form of controlling his own mind. Just checking for something here. I'm just going to read some text of the Manasiksha. Manasiksha means the instruction of the mind. So, Raghunath Goswami says, Gosta Ishu, Sudani Ebasuragani, Swamantu Sinami Vajanaba, Juvat Dunda Sarani, Sada Dhamban Ituakuru, Ratim Apovan Aditaram, Haye Sota Brata Chitubi, Abyache, Drita Padaha. So, Raghunath Goswami is addressing his own mind. He said, my dear brother, Aye Brata is actually he calls his mind his brother. He said, Aye Brata said, my dear brother, my dear foolish mind, because the mind is foolish. Taking all of your faith, I humbly pray to you with sweet words. I humbly pray to you with sweet words. Please give up all pride. He said, Damba ito means give up all pride and quickly develop deep, loving attachment for the spiritual master, for Brajadam, because when Raghunath Goswami, he composed these prayers, this instructions, he composed them in Vrindavan, in Govardhan. He composed them, actually the motto is when he was in India. So he said, give up pride and develop deep loving attachment for the spiritual master, Sri Brajadam, the residents of Braja, the Vaishnavas, the Brahmanas, your Diksha mantras, the holy names of the Supreme Lord, and the shelter of Sri Radha Krishna, the eternally youthful divine couple of Braja. So this is the mind, this is the instruction that Srila Raghunath Goswami is giving in the form of addressing us, because Srila Raghunath Goswami, he was a perfect person. He was a direct associate of Sri Chaitanya Prabhu. So he was a perfect person. So, but in order to address us, the sadhakas, those who are trying to take up the process of bhakti yoga, devotional service to the Lord. So he's given us this instruction, but he's doing that in the form of, addressing his own mind. Because the mind, as I've been reading this chapter of Bhagavad Gita, that the mind is a chanchala, a wrestler. The mind is very, very stubborn. The mind's focus is to take us away from anything that has to do, that is not to do with Krishna, except anything except Krishna consciousness. So the great Acharya is saying that the mind must be brought under control. You know? Now the Acharya will say that they're not saying that, okay, control the mind by simply going into some yoga meditation, into some austerity or all these things. That's really for you to control the mind, you know. Because by all this process, all this artificial process of yoga, different process, it's actually not possible for the mind to actually be brought under control. You know, of course, we've had many stories. We've read stories of so many great sages who are performing years and years and years of austerities to control the mind. You know, so many thousands of years. You have so many primary examples like Vishwamitra Muni. So Vishwamitra Muni, in a great sage, Brahma Rishi, he performed tapasya for like 60,000 years just to attain self-realization. Even though he performed austerity for thousands of years, still, even though he was such a powerful person, he became very, very powerful. He became so powerful, even sometimes there was a fellow that with his power, which is a spiritual power, he wanted to send someone to the heavenly planet. There's one king, this person approached Vishwamitra that he wanted to be elevated to the heavenly planet. And Vishwamitra Muni, being a very powerful Muni, said, okay. He decided to send him to the heavenly planet, just like that. This fellow did not perform any particular meditation, anything like that. He didn't perform any austerity, but the sage is powerful enough that he decided to send him to the heavenly planet. So he sent him there to the heavenly planet. And when he was going to the heavenly planet, the Indra saw this fellow coming. So Indra was very surprised. He said, who is this guy coming to the heavenly planet? What has he done? So he decided to send him back because you know that Vishwamitra Muni was sending him up here. So he sent it back down, back down to the earth. And then Vishwamitra seen this fellow coming down to the earth. Again, Vishwamitra again send me way back up again to go back to the heavenly planet. Again, Indra again, send it back. So this fellow was like going up and down, up and down, up and down, up and down. And of course, the Vishwamitra Muni became very, very angry. He wanted to destroy he wanted to create, it's okay. I'm going to create another heavenly planet. He decided to create another heavenly planet because he became so powerful, he could do anything he wanted to do. But Vishwamitra Muni, many instances, even though it was such a very powerful Muni, but he was unable to control the anger. He was able to control it, which is anger, which is the function of the body mind. He was unable to control it, which prevented him from being a Brahma Rishi. So many stories are there. That we have the famous story of Subari Muni, who was also meditating he was doing meditation, and in order to avoid attraction of the senses to any kind of sense object, from any external object, so he decided to meditate within the river, so that he went to go inside the river, so that he will not be seen. He cannot see any object. So he decided to meditate. That time he was in the river Yamuna. It's deep inside the river water. So he was meditating like this for a long period of time. For a long period of time, he was meditating. His eyes were closed. But one time, he decided to open his eye. And then when he opened his eye, somehow he saw a couple of fish, 2 fishes, they were copulating. So he saw 2 fishes were copulating. And then immediately the sex desires came within his mind. He decided to get married. So he decided to get married because he saw these 2 fish copulating. So he came out of the river and then he went to the king, King Mandata. So he went to the king and told the king that I want to marry one of your daughters. I want to marry one of your daughters. So the king said, well, I have no objection. You can marry any of my daughters. But he said, but because the king, he had 50 daughters. He said, well, but, look at you. For so long, you've been under the water for so long, and you're so much disfigured. So I said, I don't think that any of my daughters will be willing to marry you. I mean, I have no objection, but if they see you, I don't think they want to marry you. Because King Mandata, he didn't want to, antagonize the sage. Because he's a great rishi, the sage, they have so much power, they can curse you, you can, calamity, they can create all kinds of calamity. So he didn't want to antagonize the sage. He said, but, I just don't think that my daughters would want to marry someone like you. You just look at you. So the sage said, okay, don't worry, because he's a great sage. So he transformed his body. So he transformed his body to, like Mr. Universe, very, very attractive, handsome person. So when the king called his daughters, so all the 50 daughters came, and when they saw the sage in a very, very attractive, beautiful form, they all said, oh, we want to marry him. We want to marry the sage. They all became attracted to him. They all want to marry him. So very morning, so all of a sudden, he married the 50 daughters of the king. So you can just imagine, now he married 50 daughters of the king. He had to look after all of them. Of course, being a great sage, he's very powerful. So he's able to build like 50 houses for each, and they build one house for each of the, his wives. So this is the effect of the uncontrolled mind. This is the effect of it. Because it takes us away from the object of life, of the goal of life. It takes us away. So Barimuni, eventually he realized his foolishness. He realized that, oh, look at what I've done. Instead of being trying to attain the Supreme Lord, I simply became attracted to the object of sense gratification, getting married to, getting involved again in this mundane life. So eventually he became remorseful, and then he again renounced his household affairs, and I became serious in the process of attaining the ultimate goal of life. So any artificial process trying to control the mind will always bring difficulty. Because the mind is very, very powerful. The mind is so powerful thing. Very, very powerful. But even though the mind is very, very powerful, because it's actually the mind that is keeping us in this material world. That's why we are here. The mind is keeping us in the material world, because due to the uncontrolled mind. But as Prabhupada mentioned in the purport to this verse, that through the process of Krishna consciousness, then the mind can be brought under control through the activities of devotional service. So Srila Raghunadas Goswami, So it's giving this instruction that yes, the mind, how we control the mind. So he gives such a simple process, very simplistic, but at the same time also very, very powerful advice, very powerful, even though it looked very simple. So here he's saying, Gura Goshte, Gostal Yeshu Sujane Busrogane, Samantu Sinamni Brujanamatsu, Jiva Dwanda Soni, Sada Dambam, Itwago Kururatim, Apuvati Taram, Ayes Satanto Bata Situbi, Abiya Situita. But that day, so he's saying that, my dear mind, I'm just begging you, give up pride, Damba Tua. Damba means pride. Because the pride, we have the sense of, I and my, I-ness, the abhima, the pride that the thought that we are somebody, we are something, that we are somebody, because we always like to exert ourselves. There we are so personality, we are great, even though yes, we are trying to practice devotion service to the Lord. We always, trying to show how great we are. That's why Prabhu said that that unless one become more humble than the blade of grass, giving up pride, become tolerant than the tree, unless one is ready to do that, there's no possibility of chanting the Lord's holy name. But when there's humility, there's tolerance, that the sense of offering obeisance to all living entities, then it's possible to chant the Lord's name. Kirtaniya Sadaris. Harinam become easier to chant. When one is able to do, to do all these things. So, Sri Raghunath Goswami, that my dear mind, taking all of your faith, you should develop, deep loving attachment to the spiritual master. And how do one develop deep loving attachment to the spiritual master? By rendering confidential Vishrambhina Guru Seva, that yes, once one render the loving, one have deep attachment to the spiritual master by very rendering loving service onto the feet of the Guru. So that must be there. Then once you have the love for the resident of Braja, especially for some of us that live in Vrindavan, that yes, which means one should never be critical of the residents of Vrindavan. One should always realize how exalted they are. The land of Vrindavan, because the land of Vrindavan is the land of Krishna. So Das Goswami said that yes, there must be attachment, loving attachment for the land of Vrindavan, the residents of Vrindavan, then the Vaishnava, Bushrogane, the Vaishnavas. The Vaishnavas are very, very dear to the Lord. The Vaishnavas are very, very dear. The Vaishnavas are very, very exalted. They're very dear. One should always have loving attachment to the Vaishnavas. And then the Brahmanas. Now, one of the things about this instruction, because this instruction that has been commented upon by a great personality, they've given instruction about they've given commentaries on these compositions, that not only do we have to have respect to all the Vaishnava within our own Sampradaya, but the Vaishnava of other Sampradayas, all Sampradayas, which means we should never be inimical towards them. We should never be judgmental, towards them. We should always have a respectful, loving attitude towards them, towards any Vaishnava. Anyone who's chanting the Lord's name, or any kind of upāsana, any kind of service to the Lord, it's very, very special. It doesn't matter whether which Sampradaya they belong to, or sub-Sampradaya. Even within our own Brahma Gaudiya Sampradaya, there are so many other sub-sampradayas are there. We should always have loving attitude, loving respect towards all of them, all the other sampradaya. And then your diksha, our mantra which have been given to us, our diksha mantra, should always be, and we should have loving attachment to them. And of course, the chanting of the holy name of the Lord, we should chant the Lord's name with love. We don't chant the Lord's name because we want to finish chanting our rounds. No, we don't. We chant Krishna's name, not that we chant our rounds. We chant the Lord's name. It's not that the moment I finish my japa, my 16 rounds, I've done for the day. No, that is not the sign of love. And then the shelter of Radha Krishna shall always be there. So Srila Prabhupada has been very, very merciful to us. He has given us the shelter of Krishna Balaram. He has given us the shelter of Shri Radha Shyama, So such a great gift that Srila Prabhupada has given us. So we should have, we should be joyful and be very, very happy and be deep attachment to them, So in this way, this process of Krishna consciousness is the perfect process. Even though it's very simple, but it's the topmost process by which the mind can be brought under control. There's no other path that can even come close to the path of Krishna consciousness, by which because the mind become controlled. Why? Because the mind become accustomed to thinking of Krishna always, think of Krishna, remember Krishna, so many things like that. In this way, it become easier. And then our life as time to be devotees become very sublime. So, this instructions is there. The Lord is speaking to Arjuna. So very, very deep, actually. So thank you very much. If there is any question or comments, you can please go ahead. I don't think we have too many people here today. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Thank you, Prabhu. So anyone has any questions, you can unmute and ask, or you can write on the chat.
Can make comments, whatever. If I say that something wrong, you can make corrections.
I have one question, Prabhu.
Okay.
Srila Prabhupada says in his purport, he says, unless one is engaged in Krishna consciousness, he cannot steadily control his mind. Mm-hmm. So you've given several examples of sages who could not control their mind because they weren't engaged in Krishna consciousness. I was just wondering, is there a particular reason why they cannot control the mind without Krishna consciousness?
Yeah, because the goal of life is not properly defined. But just like I gave the example of Subari Muni, who was meditating for a long period of time. He submerged himself in the river, but immediately he saw the fish. He became attracted again to enjoy the object, to have the object of the senses. So there are a lot of examples like that. And also sometimes if there is offenses, that can also happen. Just like actually Subari Muni's situation was because he was somehow offensive to Garuda. Because Garuda is it's the Lord's servant. Garuda is the Lord's carrier. But Subari Muni, he taking the side of I think Kaliya. He had given a cause that if Garuda should fly over Yamuna, the spot where Kaliya is, if he had to fly there, then that Garuda will fall and die. So Garuda will not come across around that area where Kaliya was staying, which is a great offense, of course, to the great Vaishnava, because Garuda is the Lord's servant. He's the Lord's carrier. So because of his offenses, so therefore his process of meditation was disturbed. So he became affected. He became he was unable to properly control his mind when he saw the two fish copulating, even though he has been performing such a severe austerity for thousands of years of submerging himself into the river. So that's why in this prayer of Sridhar Gurundas Goswami that yes, the Vaishnavas, the Brahmanas must be respected, must never be faulted in any kind of ways. So the great sages who are unable to properly focus their mind, so therefore they get disturbed, whereas devotee, and following the principle of humility, giving up pride, always in a submissive mood, so they're able to practice their Krishna consciousness, very, very nicely. So therefore, because being able to practice 7% engage in Krishna consciousness, so the mind become controlled. The mind become easily, because the mind is fully engaged in the service of Krishna. The mind is fully engaged in all the activities of Krishna consciousness. So therefore, the mind becomes automatically controlled. But those who do not take to that sublime process, to that sublime path, so the mind becomes difficult. It becomes a difficult thing. Whereas the easy part is Krishna consciousness, association with the devotees, the Vaishnavas, respect to the Vaishnavas, service to the Vaishnavas. So these are the easy process by which, because the ones develop the sense of humility, giving up pride, tolerance, all these things is there for them. So they might become, basically subservient to the practitioner. So in this way, they become easier. Krishna consciousness become easy. Whereas, apart from that, it's not possible. So therefore, the very key is humility that the Vaishnavas have. Humility, the giving up of pride, whereby there's no sense of I am mine, all these things. So in that sense, the mind becomes easy. It becomes easy to focus on the practice of Krishna consciousness.
Good. Thank you very much.
Okay, and of course, by the virtue of association with the Vaishnava, the devotees, then they might become more inclined to just want to be within the association of devotees, hear from them, taking their remnants, all these things. So these are the various development of Krishna consciousness. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Prabhu.
So any other points? Any other questions? Okay. So I guess if we don't have no comments, so I guess we can end the class here.
Okay, thank you very much, Prabhu.
Okay, so thank you very much for inviting me. Thank you. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Hare